Unlocking the Soul, hosted by Rob Simperman and produced by Simplify Films. Episodes cover mature and controversial themes, including death, murder, and suicide. Consider this when deciding whether and when to watch.
20. Life selection. The space of life selection, also known as the viewing room or even the computer room, is said to be a private place, separate from the main study areas. It's often described like a movie theater, or as viewing a ring of destiny. Here, a soul can review available life options and make the selection. But not all is revealed. That would defeat the purpose of experiencing life. Instead, we see only the key features and challenges we would face by selecting each life. The most detailed views are shown from the ages of 8 to 20, when the major forks in our lives become apparent. Also, the further one looks into the future, the less certainty there is, due to the ever-branching probable realities. And then, of course, amnesia will obscure this view altogether later on. The first step in life selection is to choose general plans and goals for the next life. That allows our guide to identify a collection of appropriate options that will support those goals. Next, we choose the environment, including geography, culture, and even heredity. For example, one of Newton's subjects wanted to become a musician. He picked New York City, where he recently died young. He needed a location that would inspire his interest in music and have opportunities to hone his skills. Next, a soul chooses a family. Someone wanting to be a musician, for example, would benefit from parents with means who are supportive and have their own appreciation for music. Despite traditional beliefs, we rarely stay in one family line across incarnations. However, in situations like the death of a child, we volunteer to exit early as an experience for the parents, a so-called filler life. In these cases, we may later rejoin the family to play an important role. As far as gender preferences, Newton reports his subjects prefer bodies of a particular gender about 3/4 of the time. And while homosexuality is sometimes correlated with lives in the non-dominant sex body, other times it's just a tool, a way to select a more complex life situation for the lessons it affords. Yet he concludes it is always significant enough to be part of the soul plan. And the choice of the body itself is very significant. While choosing a damaged body could be a way to pay off karmic debt, to experience the pain caused on others, it is also just as likely to be a way to learn other lessons in our personal plans. As Dr. Newton says, overcoming obstacles, including physical disabilities, ailments, and pain, make us and our souls stronger as a result. So once we decide on our next life's plan, how do we coordinate all those necessary details to make it work smoothly? 21. Working out the details. The details of a life's plan may not be the most exciting topic, but logistics win wars, as they say. We need to coordinate with the key characters in this life in what is sometimes called the recognition class. It's described like last-minute cramming for an exam, so we can recognize soulmates who will play critical roles. It's like actors learning their cues for a stage play. As Seth explains, we may work within a cycle with the people involved. This can be at the family level, with family members cycling through different roles in a set of lives, or we can cycle through different races or different historical eras, or we can even get into a cycle with an entire community, like the residents of one village in one century reuniting as the residents of a different village in a different century. Newton and Cannon also describe how we set up indicators to recognize the characters intended to play parts in our life. Think of what you noticed the first time you met your current spouse or best friend. Was there any feature that caught your attention? What if that was a pre-established subconscious trigger arranged in the spirit world? Rather than you just noticing a man's blue raincoat and spontaneously offering him a ride, is it any less romantic if his soul crossed time and space to accept your ride? How about the girl you asked to dance after noticing her red dress, and then she changed the course of your life, for better or for worse? These signs occur as a significant event or phase in our life is about to begin. Now, there are backup signs if we miss the main ones, but our best bet is to follow intuition. Overthinking is an often mentioned reason for failing to recognize a life cue. These planned relationships include others that are deeply loving when we feel like we're meant for one another. This is often the primary soulmate. Also, relationships based upon friendship or respect are typically our members of our soul group, and casual acquaintances are much more likely to be those members of a different soul group within our community of around 1,000 souls. But all these relationships fill purposes in the drama of our lives. So once all that's worked out, how do we come back and get on with it? 22. Rebirth and Populations. We often have a second visit to the elders just before rebirth. This is a very private session that people under hypnosis don't detail for us. But Dr. Newton found the elders use this forum to reinforce the significance of a soul's goals for the next life. After that, a soul will likely observe the selected family before birth. That way it can learn about what to expect and confirm the selection. And finally, rebirth. Subjects describe traversing a similar tunnel to the bright white light that is the boundary to the spirit world after death. This is when chronological time resumes for the soul, and presumably where the silver cord is reattached, tying a soul to its body. Now, knitting the soul with the baby brain is a delicate process. It cannot be done until the brain is developed enough several months into the pregnancy. This is specific to each baby's brainwave pattern, the circuitry they use to translate soul signals. Some souls don't enter until the time of birth, or even a couple days afterwards. Newton and Cannon found that souls continue to do a lot of work traveling outside of the mother's womb during pregnancy. There's no reason for a soul to twiddle its little thumbs inside the womb. Remember that our souls don't even stay put during sleep. One subject described this as a time to goof off and visit with friends who are in similar situations waiting for birth. They come back periodically and give the mother's belly some kicks. These travels continue for the first several years of life, too. The soul may begin to stick around full-time by age 1, but maybe as late as when they start school. Not all souls enter into babies either. There's an alternative path for souls who get in over their heads, so to speak, to swap bodies as adults. Such an exchange of souls is agreed to in advance by the departing and the replacement soul, so still an act of free will. This is what's known as a walk-in. This term was popularized by Ruth Montgomery, a famous political journalist who later channeled numerous metaphysical books via automatic writing from her spirit guides from the 1960s through the 90s. She presented an extensive list of present-day and historical examples of walk-ins, including multiple U.S. presidents. Dolores Cannon identified a walk-in situation in her very first book, 5 Lives Remembered. It explained a woman who had a dramatic personality change the day after she attempted suicide. So we've been talking about numerous souls coming to Earth, but where do they all come from? One reason a lot of people have for being skeptical about reincarnation is the sheer number of souls on Earth, a number that grows every year. Are so many souls really available to support such a program? Where do they all come from? Well, our spirit world knowledge assures us that there's no risk of running out of souls, for a couple of reasons. First, souls are incarnating more frequently in these more interesting times. Dr. Newton compiled a chart of frequencies ranging from thousands of years between lives for the caveman era to more than 1 life per century now. As far as lives per soul, one of Cannon's subjects estimated 120 is the average number of incarnations, though some complete the schoolhouse in about 10 lives, if they focus on their path. Others suggest a couple hundred lives as common. Seth adds that there is flexibility as to the sequence of lifetimes, too. Sequence is really more a matter of focus than chronology. He gives the metaphor of a playwright who first writes a play taking place in Renaissance Florence, and then ancient Rome, and then medieval Scotland, even as he progresses on a linear path through his own development as a writer. Others tend to think of incarnations as generally sequential, but I suspect that some of that confusion is because recalling future lives would reveal too much and is often prohibited. Next, we're told that there's no shortage of souls willing to come to Earth. Remember, Earth is seen as an elite school, part of the Ivy League, so to speak, and, Harvard could easily double its enrollment next year by simply increasing its admissions rate. Another factor that Cannon and Seth in particular talked about is parallel lives. Portions of a soul's energy can be in 2 bodies that overlap in time. Some call this a twin flame. Seth described it in terms of a fragment of a soul that branches off and gains its own identity and path. Mind-blowing, isn't it? And finally, all souls have to start somewhere. Dr. Newton worked with a soul involved in the birthing process of new souls. This is the process of newly splintered light, split off from the unified energy pool known as all that is. It's given identity, or temporary duality, to gain experience as a soul. It will eventually reunite with the source, along with all of its experiences and learnings. But then what happens after our reincarnation cycle completes?